The question is not whether AI will change the world. It will. The question is who will own and control and determine the future. Who will benefit from AI and who will be hurt by AI? Will AI be used to improve the quality of life for working families? Will it help us eliminate poverty and extend our life expectancy? Will it give us more time to spend with friends and family? Or will the future of humanity be determined by a handful of the wealthiest people on earth who are only concerned about more wealth and more power for themselves? That is the question before us.
This is your captain speaking. I do recommend that you keep your seatbelt fastened and please don't wander about the cabin because there may be some turbulence that we encounter.
It seems very clear to me that a number of people deeply involved in artificial intelligence see it as a kind of mechanism for transhumanism, for transcendence of our mortal flesh, and either some kind of creation of a successor species or some kind of merger of mind and machine. And do you think that's just all kind of irrelevant fantasy? Or do you think it's just hype? Do you think people are trying to raise money by pretending that we're going to build a machine god, right? Is it hype? Is it delusion? Is it something you worry about? I think you would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit
in this.
Should
the human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But I also would I also would like us to radically solve these problems.
Right.
And so, it's always, I don't know, transhumanism is this, the ideal was this radical transformation where your human natural body gets transformed into an immortal body.
I wonder if there's a path that's hard to see now that ends in AI being net positive for humanity.
Sure. I bet 100% on that. It's that this path is very painful.
This path is very painful.
Yeah, so the example you need to understand is, we discovered nuclear power, and the very first implementation was a nuclear bomb, not nuclear energy, right? And I think that's exactly what's happening with AI. The first implementations of AI are in favor of a few at the expense of the majority. In favor of the capitalist to increase productivity and reduce costs, but not taking into account how that impacts on the general public. In favor of the armies that are now competing with autonomous weapons, in favor of the surveillance systems that are attempting to control everything with more and more and more intelligence and more monitoring. And that's not AI waking up in the morning and saying, hey, you know what, let's oppress all humans. But it is a powerful few that are simply deciding to use the ultimate superpower on the planet today to gain more power and more control. I mean, as we speak, we're living in two major wars where AI is doing most of the killing.
If you look at the Dark Enlightenment, the way that they suggest that sovereign corporations would be in charge of a realm, and that there would be a patchwork of realms controlled by sovereign corporations. So they're talking about breaking up the nation state into a patchwork of realms,
right,
and creating a kind of network of realms, a patchwork of realms, they call it. Well, and that would be totally controlled by sovereign corporations. And the Land spoke about this thing called GovCorp, which would be it's not entirely clear. I have to say, one of the reasons that I wrote the book is because most of the things that they say is not entirely clear. So you really have to sort of kind of dig into the weeds of it to figure out. They use a lot of jargon and they use a lot of They even use words that people don't even know, like neo-cameralization and re-territorialization and all this sort of jargon that they use. But essentially what it boils down to is smashing the nation state apart, carving it up, selling it off piecemeal to private corporations, then constituting that into a network,
Yep.
and then ruling that having a centralized authoritarian control over that. That is what they intend to do. And if you look at what a technate is, it's pretty similar.
Okay, so from an American point of view, what you're talking about, the net effect of these changes you just discussed, is they want to destroy the consent of the governed. Is that fair?
Well, yeah, I mean they think Land said that our sovereignty should be treated with derision.
Wow.
So we are nothing. We are nothing
Right.
in their mindset.
But if that's right, they want to destroy the consent of the governed. In other words, you have no sovereignty. Your sovereignty is a joke. You're an asset on our balance sheet.
Yeah.
Really what you're talking about from an American point of view is just the open repeal of the Declaration of Independence. That's what the whole Revolutionary War was fought over.
You're an investor in AI. You're deeply invested in Palantir, in military technology, in technologies of surveillance, in technologies of warfare, and so on, right? And it just seems to me that when you tell me a story about the Antichrist coming to power and using the fear of technological change to sort of impose order on the world, I feel like that Antichrist would maybe be using the tools that you were building, right? Like, wouldn't the Antichrist be like, great, we're not going to have any more technological progress, but I really like what Palantir has done so far, right?
Yeah,
I mean, isn't that a concern? Wouldn't that be the irony of history would be that the man publicly worrying about the Antichrist accidentally hastens his or her arrival?
There are all these different scenarios. I obviously don't think that that's what I'm doing.
I mean, to be clear, I don't think that's what you're doing either. I'm just interested in how you get to a world willing to submit to permanent authoritarian rule.
Well, but again, there are these different gradations of this we can describe. But is this so preposterous, what I've just told you?
You can look at them and say this is the preview. It's not about all of humanity losing their jobs. It's about what is the dividing line before civil war, right? Think about a situation where 20% unemployment is happening when economies are suffering inflation. I say that not to be a scaremonger. I say that because I genuinely believe governments need to wake up. Okay, government needs to at least, remember the COVID years where governments had to give furlough everywhere and ask people to stay home. If people stay home, governments have to be prepared to somehow sustain those people until reskilling happens or until we find a solution, so that those people don't feel that they're left behind.
A civil war.
Unrest, let's call it.
Civil unrest.
Yeah.
What does that end up looking like? Because on one end, the democratic process plays its role and we just elect someone else.
Does it really? Don't say that.
I don't know. You tell me.
Oh, no. I think democracy has ended a long time ago, Stephen. I think we live in the most corrupt time. I don't know about history, to be honest, but this is definitely corrupt. Okay? This definitely is not democracy. This definitely is not even congressional in any possible way. And people are angry. People are angry because their tax money is going to things that they don't choose to, that don't benefit them. That, lots of regulations in the system are being ignored. I mean, I choose not to speak about politics perhaps until my next book comes out, but look, we have video evidence of people abusing children and not a single person got arrested. Not a single person. I mean, how can you call that a democracy? I think repeating those slogans is gonna is going to anger people even more, if you ask me. People know that they're being lied to. People know that their leaders are not representing their best interests. People know that their money is going to causes that they don't really approve of. And ask me how civil unrest looks like. I don't know, and I'm not calling for it, but I'm hopefully calling for the politicians to start to become aware that this is crossing the lines everywhere.
In a nutshell, these transnational mega corporations have they have what I call a monopoly technocracy agenda for the world. And they seek to implement what has been referred to by some of their writings as full spectrum dominance. Even a book written by that name, by F. William Engdahl, in collusion with the leaders of the heads of world governments they currently have under their complete control. They have recently been speaking openly, including at the most recent G20 summit, about their plans to usher in a universal digital currency, which is most often referred to as a CBDC, or central bank digital currency, ultimately to be tied to a universal global digital identification card. So stay with me, this is important. The plan is that this global digital ID card will be attached to your bank account, your social media accounts, all of your medical records, etc., etc. You get the picture. And combined with a system called a social credit score, which has already been implemented by the CCP in China. Did you know that? They wanted to take over Western society, especially the United States of America. They want to stop our beacon of freedom to the rest of the world, our personal sovereignty example, our constitutional model, our constitutional republic. They want to stop it. It's just making everybody else want to have what we have. And they don't want that. They want to end the nation-state model of governance and have it be a world state under their control. They've made significant progress already. And again, like I say, with the big, huge model of China. And they want to bring that to the United States. How does this relate to my book, Holy Libel, being banned from being advertised on Amazon? It is critical to understand that the primary way these monopoly corporations seek to control the masses, and have been controlling you for a long time now, has everything to do with their ability to manipulate you because of their long-developed focus group skills covertly in studying your belief profile. Okay? Because they know, because they've programmed it over thousands of years, they've learned there's significant, a limited basically number of groupthink psychological profiles that they study and learn how to control. They're perfecting their understanding, like I said, of the groupthink of the major divisive religious and political belief systems that they know have been programmed over a long time, because they've been part of doing that, and that they know are common in our society today. So they're perfecting controlling your behavior based on your belief profile. Harvard Business School professor Shoshana Zuboff, in her book, and I've mentioned this in a recent program to you before, her book is called The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, here on my desk. Okay, Shoshana Zuboff, Harvard Business School professor, elaborates on the use of manipulating the perception and behavior of the masses by such big tech monopolies using their intricate social media algorithms that are designed to get you completely addicted to them, after which, once they get you addicted to them, like so many people are today, after they do that, they learn who you are better than you know yourself. Okay, think about that. Through their algorithms, once you get addicted to Facebook and Google and Twitter and everything, they get you so addicted. Now they use TikTok especially, all right? They They learn who you are better than you know yourself in order to manipulate your behavior and control your perception. So with that in mind, these predatory globalist monopolies absolutely do not want any effective book like Holy Libel to finally and undeniably expose the man-made fraud and lies of control, especially of the Bible. Now, this is not because these monopolies, these elites, agree with the false teachings of the Bible. Quite the contrary. Those at the top of these monopolies are well aware of those lies of control, but they have mastered how to exploit them. That's the reason why, like I said a few minutes ago, they are perfecting and have mastered the art of exploiting those beliefs, those false beliefs, those lies, in order to control you. So they don't want them to go away, so that they can continue to exploit them. And this is what actually Google has coined as behavioral sequencing, to psychologically manipulate and influence the behavior and perception of those who hold such beliefs.
As new users enter an ecosystem, they begin to create their own trail of data. By comparing this emergent ledger with the mass of historical user data, it becomes possible to make increasingly accurate predictions about decisions and future behaviors. As cycles of collection and comparison extend, it may be possible to develop a species-level understanding of complex issues such as depression, health, and poverty. Our ability to interpret user data, combined with the exponential growth in sensor-enabled objects, will result in an increasingly detailed account of who we are as people. As these streams of information are brought together, the effect is multiplied. New patterns become apparent and new predictions become possible. Since the 1970s, huge efforts have been made in sequencing the human genome. Today, after many years of research and billions of data points, that sequence is known. By adopting a similar perspective with user data, we may begin to better understand its role. Just as the examination of protein structures paved the way to genetic sequencing, the mass, multi-generational examination of actions and results could introduce a model of behavioral sequencing. As gene sequencing yields a comprehensive map of human biology, researchers are increasingly able to target parts of the sequence and modify them in order to achieve a desired result. As patterns begin to emerge in the behavioral sequences, they too may be targeted. The ledger could be given a focus, shifting it from a system which not only tracks our behavior, but offers direction towards a desired result. The ledger could be given a focus, shifting it from a system which not only tracks our behavior, but offers direction towards a desired result.
Connie Bryan, and of course you're watching the one and only Connie Bryan Show, and boy do I have yet another big blockbuster broadcast in store for you tonight. You don't want to miss it. It's what I'm calling Game of Drones. Palantir is coming, the play on Game of Thrones, and we're going to be talking about the existential threat of artificial intelligence. A lot of critical information you need to know, so you don't want to miss it. But of course, this is always the part of the program that I like to welcome everyone in our viewing audience across the nation, because I'm so proud we've grown the show over the years to now over 20 markets nationwide. And so let's go ahead and begin by welcoming, as always, our hometown audience of Sacramento and our sister city right next door, Davis. Thank you for watching. And also welcome to all of you tuning in Truckee Lake Tahoe. Thanks for watching. And then moving over a little closer toward the Bay Area, welcome to everyone watching in wine country in Napa Valley. Thanks for tuning in. And then in the actual Bay Area, we have about 3 markets. Welcome to all of you tuning in Berkeley and in San Francisco and in San Jose. Then moving down to Southern California, we have a couple of markets. Thank you for tuning in, all of you in Long Beach. And also, welcome to everyone tuning in Santa Cruz and Gilroy. I think that covers all of our markets in California. We do have a couple of markets in Oregon. Welcome to everyone tuning in Portland and Beaverton, Oregon. Then moving over to the center of the country, welcome to all of you tuning in Denver, Colorado. Then moving over to the East Coast, let's start at the southernmost point. Welcome to all of you tuning in Salisbury, Maryland. And also one of our longest standing markets, Salem, Massachusetts. Welcome to everyone tuning in our 2 markets in New York. Everyone watching in Manhattan and Staten Island, thanks for tuning into the show. And then moving a little further northward, welcome to everyone tuning in Stratford, Connecticut at Soundview Media. And last but not least, welcome to our 2 markets in Vermont, which would be the Falls area of Vermont, which is Keene Station and Bellows Falls. I don't think I left anyone out. And welcome to you wherever you are watching worldwide on the web. I can't thank you enough for tuning into the show, and I want to remind everybody where you can always go and find my newest content on demand on my website at conniebryan.com. I need you guys to step it up. I've said this before. Let me just say, wouldn't it be nice, since you guys are my fans, and I know so many of you watch on, thank goodness you're watching on public access, cable access across the nation with the way I've syndicated the show and built the markets, built my own network because I'm being held back and stiff-armed by the mainstream media, and you guys know why. You see why. I've told you about it. I'm being shadow banned like crazy because I'm bringing the truth that the powers that be, the Epstein class that controls the mainstream media, don't want you to hear. So that's why I've been so held back, even though I was endorsed by the legend, the father of improv comedy, the comedy legend, Jonathan Winters himself, which you can see a clip of at the top of my website, doing something he rarely ever did. Giving me his special endorsement and coming on the show. And before he passed away, we became friends in Santa Barbara, where I had begun. That's where I started the show. And despite me getting such a huge endorsement, which is so coveted, and if you're a comedian, it'd be like getting an endorsement from somebody like, Jay Leno, maybe. But it's even bigger than that. We're talking Jonathan Winters. So can you just imagine getting an endorsement from, like, maybe today, who would it be? Somebody really big in comedy. Well, just imagine it, like when Johnny Carson was alive, if you got an endorsement from him. It was kind of like that. So it's hard to find somebody equivalent to him, to Jonathan Winters today. Came on and gave me this huge endorsement and a big 45-minute interview about his life. And the industry has just absolutely blackballed me, and it's largely because I exposed the lies around 9/11. I was one of the early voices, like I've told you, that brought to the fore the fact that that was a false flag, that we were lied to about the events of 9/11. And I've done a couple of documentaries on that, so make sure you seek those out. Anyway, how I got off on that is, wouldn't it be nice, since you guys know how I'm challenged by the fact that they're blocking me, stiff-arming me, keeping me out, wouldn't it be nice if you guys really stepped it up and I'm not greedy. I give you guys this free show. I'm not here reading ads. right. I don't take you right up to a important point that I'm going to make, and then break for some pre-recorded ad like a lot of the paid influencers do. You see that all the time if you're watching the alternative media. So you see, I'm giving you this content. It's coming out of my own pocket, and you know the challenges I'm facing. Wouldn't it be nice if just a fraction of you guys really stepped it up and saw how you could support me with my books? Okay? Holy Libel and Change, my second book, my newest book that is now out everywhere books are sold. I just finished making sure that it was out on Ingram Spark. So it's up on Amazon and out on Ingram Spark and Barnes & Noble. Wouldn't it be nice if I had, I'm not being greedy, how about 10 of you? Can we get 10 of you to give me just a little review on Amazon? Why do I have to beg? I mean, I've made myself a target. I haven't told you guys the extent of that. You guys have no idea. When you bring such truth to power, you make yourself a huge target. And I've been the victim of making myself a target, and maybe someday I'll tell you more about that. But the powers that be do not like the truth that I'm bringing you. And like I'm going to be bringing you with this series, Game of Drones, Palantir is coming instead of Winter is coming from Game of Thrones. It was Winter is coming. So my documentary, Game of Drones, Palantir is coming. They don't want you to be made aware of the things I'm going to be showing you, the evidence I'm going to be showing you of the existential threat of artificial intelligence. If artificial intelligence was properly regulated to where it simply assisted humans and empowered humans instead of suppressing and oppressing us and taking away our jobs, if we could adequately, responsibly, morally regulate it, okay, then we could talk about limited uses, of course, finding ways to extend our life, of course, but not this insanity that we're seeing how the Epstein class elites, people like Peter Thiel, want to use it for. And while I'm on that topic, let me just tell you, back in December, I think of 2025, Donald Trump signed an executive order banning, are you ready for this? Banning states from being able to write their own laws restricting and regulating the artificial intelligence that he's signed another executive order teaming up with people like Larry Ellison and other big names like Peter Thiel, the big movers and shakers, Elon Musk, teaming up with a whole team of them to the tune of a public-private partnership of $500 billion, a significant part of that being our tax dollars. And then, of course, the other big, huge part of it is coming from the private investors. And that's why we're seeing all of these data centers being pushed on states and counties all over the country that are robbing them of their resources and all, especially water resources, to cool their data centers in order to build the infrastructure for this existential threat of AI. So what happened was Donald Trump, right after he got into office, he teamed up with them and signed an executive order for a partnership, public-private partnership with these robber barons of today, big tech billionaire, AI titans, if you will, of Silicon Valley. He teamed up with them. I mean, within the week after he got into his second term, he gave a press conference with them and announced it was a public-private partnership with them for artificial intelligence to build all these data centers. And it was to the tune of $500 billion. Like I said, a big part of it coming from taxpayer dollars. And I say this just to now get back to repeating that Donald Trump in December signed an executive order after he did what I just told you about. He signed an executive order banning states individually from stepping up and being able to regulate and say, no, we don't want what you're doing on the national level. We don't want it in our state. Donald Trump banned that. So do you see how much of a con artist he is? He's been put there to serve the Epstein class. That's why he's been blocking the release of the whole Epstein files. it's not just that he's in them. All of these a-holes, so many of them are also in those files. And so many of them are friends of people who may not be in the files, who are all, they have this agenda that is to oppress humanity. It's to our detriment and to their benefit, this artificial intelligence agenda that they have. So I'm just saying, wouldn't it be nice if you guys, just 10% of you, would step it up and go and find my content and like it and share it and help me, because that helps us get over the shadow banning, is when you like and share the content. It just would mean the world to me if I could get more of you wind under my wings, okay? Since you know the challenge that I'm facing, and how much healing that we could bring. That's the other thing I wanted to say, is how much healing we could bring. Because like I told you, this is a ministry that I'm doing. This is not just entertainment. And so just imagine that if we could, the healing that I bring from the content of these books, there's no other book out there that comes anywhere close how I show you where healing is found, and I show you what's blocking us from achieving that healing. And like I said, I do. This is like Change. My second book is basically my show in book form. It's very entertaining. It's got such a variety of different topics with the chapters, including how I met Jonathan Winters, by the way, and how the Connie Bryan Show got started. Okay, so like I said, this is going to be entitled Game of Drones. Palantir is coming, and it's going to be part 1 of at least a 2-part series. We'll see, it might even be 3 parts by the time we're finished, but it's going to be at least 2 parts. And we're going to be talking about the existential threat of artificial intelligence. We have the wrong leaders, like I've told you before, and we've been lied to by the fraudulent institutions we were taught that we had to trust. I can't stress that enough. And as a direct result of those institutional lies and the shills serving the billionaire elite class I was just talking about, who we have for world leaders, both in the church and in politics. You got to remember that, okay? Both these corrupt individuals, they're partners, okay? I'm going to talk about this in a minute, but you never have an organized religion that's weaponized, that's not tied right in with a government, okay? They work hand in hand together. And because of this elite class we have for world leaders both in the church and in politics, humanity is facing an existential emergency right now more than ever. The reason for this worldwide emergency is largely due to how our artificial intelligence technological development has exponentially outpaced our proper spiritual development. I feel the need to repeat that one more time to make sure it sinks in, that last sentence. Our artificial intelligence technological development is exponentially outpacing. It has outpaced our proper spiritual development. And that is the reason why this threat is happening. Because if we knew who we were, if we understood true spirituality, true spiritual truth that I cover in my books, if we understood that, we wouldn't be doing this. We were meant to be universal, loving healers, not exclusive religious dividers. And that's what this book is all about. The Bible is all about division. Matthew 10:34, Jesus said, "You think I came to bring peace? No, I came to bring a sword." You haven't, so many of you who call yourself Christians haven't read your Bible. Jesus over and over and over again saying how he's going to come back with his angels in the end times and commit genocide of all non-believers. Does that sound like love to you? We're going to get more into that in a minute. But I'm telling you, we were not, this is all man-made horse shit that you've been programmed with. Like me, from a child program. Thank God I was saved from these lies. And we can't tolerate these lies anymore because they are what have blinded us to real spiritual truth that I show you in my books so that we can bring healing to this place. So you guys got to get behind me with this ministry. There's nothing more important than what I'm talking about here on the Connie Bryan Show. Nothing. And I struggle to get you guys to, be the wind beneath my wings and help me share the show. Go and find my content and say, screw you to YouTube, and I'm sharing the show. Share the shit out of it. Like the shit out of it. Subscribe so we can fight back because they're trying to keep my show from being found. It's ridiculous. Even Twitter is doing that. Elon Musk, I should tell you about that maybe in the next episode. How when I posted this up on Substack, I put up a Twitter about this article. I made an article, so this show is based on that article. And I put it up on Twitter, and he wouldn't let it have any impressions. It got 0, not even 10 on Twitter. They made sure to block it, so nobody saw it. That's what I'm dealing with. That's why I need you guys to step it up and help me be found more. Now, I just told you we were meant to be universal loving healers, not exclusive religious dividers like the organized religion of Christianity and Judaism. Like Judaism says, we're the chosen people, we're the holy ones, the Jews. See what I'm talking about? The division, that's the core of the Old Testament. And then the New Testament, we're the only right way to believe in God. There's only one way, it's this way. And then Jesus is going to come back and wipe everybody out. See the division? And I don't, you try to say you don't believe that, but you want to call yourself a Christian, you don't get to do that. You're cherry picking and trying to claim you're a Christian no, Christianity is what I just said, is that there's only one way to believe and all others are condemned. And that's what the Bible says, the New Testament says over and over and over again. You have to wake up to that and stop pretending that it doesn't say that, because when you do that, you're enabling that shit. And not calling it out like we call out racism. We call out racism, it's time to start calling out religious bigotry so that we can finally bring healing to this place. And that's what I do effectively in my books. 10? Can we get 10? Just 10? 10 reviews? Is that too much to ask? So we were meant to be universal loving healers. Just checking to see how I'm doing on time here. And we were not meant to be religious dividers. The message of the Bible. A long time ago, spiritual truth was hijacked. It was polluted. It was weaponized by the concoctors of the 3 Abrahamic fraudulent organized religions of Judeo-Christianity and Islam. You and I, as a child, have been lied to by the teachings of Judeo-Christianity and Islam. Plain and simple, no holds barred, you've been lied to. You've been lied to by the teachings of the Bible and the Koran. They are not the Word of God. They are the words of bigoted elites. I call them the Epstein Class 1.0. They wanted to deify their respective culture. They wanted to artificially concoct this, they call a faith, push it on their cultures and brainwash them into thinking it's their culture is the only culture that's divine, that's divinely chosen. That's what I mean by they wanted to deify their culture above all others using fear and guilt. It was fear and guilt-oriented, weaponized teachings fraudulently in the name of God. Now, what I'm going to tell you next is critical for you to understand. Like I said a little earlier, if you remember, we always see weaponized religions, i.e. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. I call them the big three, is how I often refer to them. We always see these weaponized religions, these divisive religions. We always see them irrevocably married to their imperialist culture's governance. In other words, they are a tool of those in power in the culture that deliberately created that tool. It's a psyop tool. In order, what they were seeking to do, and they did very effectively, is to galvanize total devotion of the masses. This is what you really got to get. This is so important for you to get. It's beyond patriotism when you do this. It's kind of similar. They use this tool to galvanize total devotion of the masses with a passion that would surpass simply just patriotism alone, which has its own huge power. Imperialism and world domination are at the fundamental root core of each of the big three Abrahamic false faiths that were deliberately crafted in order to, like I said, to deify their cultures and produce this sheep-like devoted populace that would, of course, be key to what? Why are they trying to do this when they have an imperialistic agenda in mind? To deify their culture, to use religion to galvanize everybody to be so devoted because God, our patriotic, wonderful country and culture we're chosen by God. So now you combine the patriotism and that sick, bigoted belief that they're above all others, ordained by God. What are the concoctors of these? This kind of a psyops. What are they trying to do? Why do they want to galvanize the masses? Well, it's because that's what's necessary in order to mount the military forces to accomplish the imperialist agenda that they had in the name of God or in the name of Allah. Talk about the famous verse from the New Testament, "By their fruits you shall know them." That's the pinnacle of hypocrisy. That verse. How is it used, Because the crafters of that passage, where it says, "By their fruits you shall know," Christians, the crafters of that passage were trying to claim that Christianity is all about love, all about loving good fruits. Loving good behavior and kindness. And yet, what have we seen? We see the exact opposite. All through not only the constant repetition of condemning passages toward non-Christians in the New Testament, but also all through the Old Testament, with the condemnation and the genocide ordained by God toward non-Jews, which is what we hear from Netanyahu. I showed you, clips back when we saw their genocide they were doing in Gaza, where he was quoting passages that was I think Amalek, where they were ordained by God to commit genocide of the culture led by Amalek, I think it was. Anyway, I showed you the passages where he was citing the Old Testament that was telling the Jews that they could commit mass genocide of men, women, and children just because the cultures were not Jewish. So this is what I mean by talk about the fruits. By their fruits you shall know them. We see the complete opposite of their fruits being loving and kind, both in the Old and the New Testament. and outside of the Bible, all through the last 2,000 years, with Christianity's consistent legacy, fruits of, like I said, genocidal manifest destiny, genocidal warmongering and enslaving of blacks, Native Americans, and other minorities. And I cover this evidence much more in depth in both of my books, Holy Libel and Change, and in the Holy Libel especially, using the reader's own King James Version Bible. And I carefully show them the evidence showing that Christianity is not at all what their church leaders have lied to them about, claiming that it's all about, like I said, unconditional love. I show them how it is entirely conditional, and that Jesus repeatedly decrees that he will return and commit mass genocide with his army of angels, destroying and damning to hell all non-believers. Does that sound like unconditional love and forgiveness to you? Of course not. And I just want to add to this, by the way, this imperialistic world domination agenda at the core of each of the big three Abrahamic false faiths is key to understanding the book of Revelations. If you've always wished you could understand the book of Revelations, it's not difficult at all. In short, let me tell you how to understand the book of Revelations. What is up is down, and what is down is up. And what do I mean by that? Simply put, who's responsible for bringing us the book of Revelation? Well, it was the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican. That's who created the New Testament. In the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, that's who put that concoction together, that weaponized concoction that they call the New Testament, that they then forced on the masses in order to, like I said earlier, galvanize people to have that total devotion, that whole brainwashed devotion, thinking that this is the only, we have to adhere to this belief along with being good Romans citizens, and then that got them to be the military that was going to be used for complete imperialistic control of the world. That was Rome's agenda. So to understand Revelation, you first have to understand, it's really not complicated. The Roman Catholic Church, the bishops who were responsible for bringing us that final book of the New Testament, they created a fictional, straw man, evil villain. They called who? Who did they call? What did they call him? The Antichrist. Completely made up, what we call a straw man, completely fictional. And then they proceeded to write a fear-mongering, end-times predicting book, because like I told you earlier, all of this is, these weaponized religions are all based on fear and guilt, manipulating you with fear and guilt, to think of God as something that God is not, someone who's going to condemn you, etc. To think of yourself as so evil by nature when you're not, you're holy by nature. But they want to beat you down and make you so guilt-ridden that you'll, okay, this is the only way I can be saved, which is complete horseshit. So they created this Antichrist in the book of Revelations, complete straw man, and proceeded to write, like I said, a fear-mongering, end-times predicting book that was, this is why I say what is up is down. It was a mirror image. It was the complete opposite. It was all really their plans to do what they were claiming that the Antichrist is going to come in the end times and do. Okay? So it's basically, it's complete what we call misdirection, which is a key element of PSYOPs propaganda. They forced these 6 superstitious beliefs on the masses, which has continued to this day, keeping them fooled into thinking someone other than the imperialist who gave them the Bible would be the evil satanic force seeking world domination and the destruction of most of humanity. That's what they claim in the book of Revelation, that the Antichrist will be responsible, for killing so many people who don't worship the Antichrist. Follow me here. This is what I meant by what is up is down and what is down is up with Revelation. So they create this straw man, evil straw man, fictional, when in truth, the agenda that they claim was the Antichrist was core to those who concocted the book of Revelations, Rome, at the time. They were the ones who really, their agenda was complete world domination, and of course we've seen in their legacy how they acted out. You know, the killing of those who wouldn't worship the way they demanded. You know, with the Spanish Inquisition and all of that. Like I mentioned earlier, that legacy of Christianity and Judaism, of their genocide in the name of God. Same with Islam. Okay, so you see that imperial, very same thing that they try to claim the Antichrist, this fake fictional character is going to come into, really was what they ultimately knew was their agenda. In whenever the end times, which probably would never be end times, but they wanted to scare people with that. That's going to happen in the end times. But they were really planning, ultimately, when we galvanize complete domination of the planet, we'll do so by doing the very kinds of things that we're claiming the Antichrist is going to do. And that's the threat of artificial intelligence, folks. That's why I'm talking about all this, is because we're seeing this desire to bring this oppressive artificial intelligence at all costs into reality that is not to empower humans, but to oppress us with a dystopian panopticon surveillance system of total control and censorship. We're already seeing, the early signs of that censorship, like I've been telling you that's happened to me and so many others. So I just want you to realize that this is they're getting close to, they think, the end of their plan to accomplish complete totalitarian corporate control. And it's not going to be the Antichrist like Christians think. It's going to be the Epstein class if we, the people, don't wake up and stand up to it.
This is my very specific question for you, right? Is that you're an investor in AI. You're deeply invested in Palantir, in military technology, in technologies of surveillance, in technologies of warfare, and so on, right? And it just seems to me that when you tell me a story about the Antichrist coming to power and using the fear of technological change to sort of impose order on the world, I feel like that Antichrist would maybe be using the tools that you were building, right? Like, wouldn't the Antichrist be like, great, we're not going to have any more technological progress, but I really like what Palantir has done so far, right?
Yeah,
I mean, isn't that a concern? Wouldn't that be the irony of history would be that the man publicly worrying about the Antichrist accidentally hastens his or her arrival?
There are all these different scenarios. I obviously don't think that that's what I'm doing.
It seems very clear to me that a number of people deeply involved in artificial intelligence see it as a kind of mechanism for transhumanism, for transcendence of our mortal flesh, and either some kind of creation of a successor species or some kind of merger of mind and machine. And do you think that's just all kind of irrelevant fantasy? Or do you think it's just hype? Do you think people are trying to raise money by pretending that we're going to build a machine god, right? Is it hype? Is it delusion? Is it something you worry about? I think you would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit
in this.
Should
the human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But I also would I also would like us to radically solve these problems.
Right.
And so, it's always, I don't know, transhumanism is this, the ideal was this radical transformation where your human natural body gets transformed into an immortal body.
Most experts agree will almost certainly be the most transformational technology in the history of humanity. It will profoundly impact the lives of every man, woman, and child in our country. And before I go further, I find it rather odd that whereas everybody agrees that artificial intelligence is going to have a huge impact on our society, as of today, there has not been one significant piece of legislation passed in Congress to address the impacts of AI. Why is that? Why is it when all of the experts say AI is going to impact the economy, it's going to impact privacy, it's an existential threat to humanity, not one piece of legislation? And the answer is we have a corrupt campaign finance system, and the AI industry, like a number of other industries, are prepared to spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars against any member of Congress who says, you know what, maybe we should protect our kids. Maybe we should protect our workers from AI. So as of today, despite all over the country, people expressing very real and deep concerns about AI, not one significant piece of legislation has been passed. Mr. President, leading experts in the AI industry tell us that AI will radically change our economy and quite possibly result in the disappearance of tens of millions of jobs over the next decade. Psychologists tell us that the mental health challenges facing our young people are unprecedented and are resulting in increased isolation as kids experience AI. If left unchecked, our children's best friends may not be other kids, but AI bots.
All right, that's going to have to do it for this episode. And you definitely want to make sure to watch this series, because I'm going to get more and more in depth. And hopefully you caught the beginning of the show where I played the trailer, which has several very important clips you need to see. If you didn't see that, you can find that trailer also on my website at conniebryan.com. All right, until next time, stay safe, and I'll talk to you then.